Street culture keep the big shows. One set of girls and banner. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. They hide the corruption inside the cup, look how we evil set up. The people fed up. Every picture you take and promise you make, everything you do is about clouds. Then you come into me for I shake your hand, there's nothing to smile about. Corruption inside every sector, but when it comes to them they send you. Try investigate efficiency, right? Go talk to Baratans too, cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You hiding corruption inside the cup, look how we evil set up. The people fed up. I done fed up on the dirty water, low pressure, want scream and tell somebody. Imagine 1500 US and they're telling me super salary. I done fed up on the unemployment racism and the lie they say one Guyana. Cause when you look with the oil money going, circulate with one set of banner. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how we evil set up. The people fed up.
There and fabricate that. Unless you say who the person is, I can't comment on anonymous people.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Sujurong?
Suj? Oh.
How old are you?
I am 28, sir.
And where do you live?
In Kitty.
You own your own home?
Not as yet.
Apply for a house lot?
Not yet.
Well, sit down. You're not participating on the enhancement of your own life. At 28
Yeah, my name is Jasniti Kaldata Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my ex next to the cup, and what they are doing today I can't take it, so I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
Oh, Jesus Christ, if cost of living double, I don't know what happened. A pound of sugar is $300 already. Flour, everything gone up. Everything just raising. You gotta get about $40,000 for buy good ration. You gotta get 3 man now. A weekend man, a monthly man, and a fortnight man.
All right, good night and welcome to Straight Up. My name is Mark Benchab. Share the link, let folks know that we're on. If you have a piece of land in Guyana, you've got to keep an eye on it because the thieves are going to go after that. The PPP, the corrupt, the thieves, Jack Dale and Irfan, they will go after that. You've got to be very careful. Dr. Vincent Adams is with us this evening. We want to talk about the funds and how they're stealing the oil resources and how they're packing the boards with their cronies and so forth. So Dr. Vince Adams is with us this evening. But before that, we want to take you back to this here. Very, very unprofessional. And I'm not sure. Some of you might have some other descriptions for this here, but this is not how you run a country. And this is not how you treat young people.
How old are you?
I am 28, sir.
And where do you live?
Kitty.
You own your own home?
Not as yet.
Apply for a house lot?
Not yet.
Well, sit down. You're not participating on the enhancement of your own life.
All right, at 28 years old, Irfan Ali is telling that young reporter that he's not participating in the enhancement of his life. The regime is not paving the way for that. For 23 years, they've destroyed young people. For 23 years, they've destroyed a young generation. For 23 years, they've destroyed Guyana. We have seen it. They've destroyed the judiciary. They've destroyed the legislative, the executive branch. Corruption rampant for 23 years. Meddling with drug lords and associating with phantom squad killers and all these different things. Guyana was destroyed for 23 years. Now these vagabonds are back. And this man, Irfan Ali, is telling a young reporter that he's not participating in the enhancement of his own life. Dr. Vincent Adams, I don't know, you have kids, you have grandkids, you have friends, and you have a lot of young people like myself that you probably, let me give you the first ball to bowl and ask you to respond to what Irfan Ali said to that young reporter. Good
Hey,
night.
good night, good night, Mark, and welcome to your listeners again. Mark, it demonstrates again the immaturity of the leader that we have, or the so-called leader, because we know who's the actual leader. But these guys, it's just the arrogance and the imperiousness. They believe that they're so lordly that they can speak to any and everybody as if they're all little kids. Now here's this young man. Instead of him providing an encouraging word, which is what would be expected of a leader of a country, to provide the encouraging word to show the way for the young people to advance themselves. This He's berating this young man, and just basically abusing him. But it just demonstrates, Mark, what we've been living with for the past 4 years, or even before that. The 23 years before that. It shows that the future of this country is in jeopardy, because if what over I think 60% of the population is, 26 years and under. And if this is the way that you're going to treat them, and if this is the way that you're going to show them the path to development, then the whole country is in serious trouble. We don't have a future. So this behavior is despicable, but it's not anything that's strange and we shouldn't expect. We saw what happened with the 5:30 a.m. meeting. Again, it's just a pamphlet themselves to show this, that they're bigger than everybody else, until they just grovel, though, when they're caught, like the clip you played there with the vice president. When he got caught, they would just start stuttering. In the Sioux, with the Sioux jam, he started stuttering. But it's a most despicable behavior, Mark. And the only thing that can change this is a change, is to getting these guys out of office, because I can see they feel empowered, Mark, because they're getting away with it. There's no accountability for them whatsoever, and that's the only reason why they're gonna continue to do this, unless they're thrown out of office. And it will escalate. By the way, if they get into office again, if you think that it's bad now, Mark, wait and see what would happen if they
Well,
do get
well,
back in
well,
office.
well, on that note, thank you so much, Dr. Adams. People don't want to wait and see what will happen. They got to be proactive. They got to go out. They got to register to vote. You got to be prepared. The opposition, those folks in the opposition, got to keep the PPP running. Keep them running every single day, night and day. This is not a part-time job. It's a night and day, 24/7. Keep them running. Keep them on the back foot, so to speak. Irfan Ali got up less than, what is it, 5:35 this morning. He decided that he's going to have to address the nation. I don't know, but every single thing with corruption and covering up, that's what they do. We'd want you to respond to at least some of the trash that came out of the mouth, which is a usual occurrence, out of Irfan Ali's mouth this morning concerning the Natural Resource Fund, I believe, and other ridiculous matters. But some folks might be asking out there, what is pampazet? Well, that's a word that came out of the dictionary of Poker Street, pampazet, meaning showing up yourself and so forth. Let's say goodnight to all the folks of Linden. I know you're proud to see your own out there, Dr. Vincent Adams, who is here. Your own, by the way, a Lindener. Good night to all you folks who
A
have shared.
Christian Borger force, a Christian Borger force.
A Christian burger first, indeed. All right, good. All of you who are watching, we appreciate you. I know it's going on to the Christmas season for those who celebrate Christmas or Kwanzaa or whatever. Let's just move on here. We got some other stuff to talk about. That 5:30 meeting seemed to have gone down the drain. There's nothing happened, and we all knew that it was a waste of time. You weren't surprised the way Irfan spoke to those people. He's not a good actor, though, sir.
Let me tell you something. That was the biggest hoax of a meeting. Again, I mean, look at the timing of these things. Um, the guy wanted to show in that meeting that he's the boss, he's in charge. The question that everybody asks: the biggest project manager in Guyana is Bharat Jagdeo. Why wasn't Bharat Jagdeo at that meeting when the biggest project was way behind schedule and above cost? But he was not even at the meeting. But the guy had to, the president had to sit there. And what was most appalling and egregious, though, Mark, is that there was corruption that was admitted in front of the president, and all he did was laugh it off. Did you remember the one guy who said that he bid on here he's the engineer, he bid on two projects, and then there was an engineer who oversees the project and bids on another project, and all he did was laugh it off. He tells the guy, well, you're really brave to come up here and say that, and just laugh it off right in front of his face. So that meeting was just a big show. It meant nothing. But the one thing I liked about it, though, is how he treated these guys who like to go around and intimidate. I don't want to use the word again, but the popular,
okay.
like the Honorable Edgil. He likes to be a big boss, and he goes around and try to intimidate. And the the president shut him down. He got up with this foolishness about, well, the engineer and the contractor, they've got bad blood. And the president basically told him to sit down. He's really disappointed him getting up, as if he's running his agency based upon bad blood in the agency. He told Priya. So all of these big mouths and who are playing that they're bad, he put them in a place. So that's the best part of the meeting that I enjoyed, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's the only part that I enjoyed. The other part is basically garbage. But you mentioned running and bidding and having contracts and so forth, and there's bad blood between the engineers and the so-called contractors and so forth. Yep. Bad blood everywhere in the installed regime. There's bad blood between Irfan Ali and Jagdeo. Do not be fooled. There's bad blood between ministers. I'm not even sure how come we're not seeing in the news that chap minister. We're probably going to see that soon, because there's bad blood all over the country. They're mismanaging the country inside out. These individuals are not qualified. They're not qualified to develop. That's a new word, develop the country. And so next elections, they need to sit outside and not return to government at all, because they cannot govern the country. They're a bunch of incompetent, unqualified individuals. I'm sure with your stint in Washington and working for the energy department, you've never seen any such thing as how Guyana is being managed right now, sir.
And we would never see such things, because first of all, competence is a pillar to even get up to the high levels, where you run those type of projects, and you're a senior executive. And so when you get there, you're very competent. You know what you're doing. Guyana is totally different. The only qualifications to get to this position is being loyal to the party, or you're a friend and family of the government. Look at the people who are getting these contracts. Today one guy is doing something, and maybe a newspaper reporter or something, and then the next day you give him $1 billion in $1 billion contract. You got a guy, the guy who brought down the coalition. One day he was an ambassador. He came back looking for a job. The next thing you know, he's got contract, and he's now complaining. So there's no criteria for qualification, and even in the process that they've got for selecting the people, what they've got on paper, it doesn't mean anything, because as we've seen, they've circumvented that, and they're just handing out these prizes. And Mark, if you look at and I think there's studies that show that there's at least 50%, and I believe that's a low number, that is being wasted on these projects. That is a very low number as far as I'm concerned. Could you imagine if you get competent managers to manage these projects, what that 50% of this $666 billion, 60% of Guyana's budget, $666 billion, is going into maybe 1% of the people's pockets. That meaning the contractors. So could you imagine if you can save half of that? And you crying out loud. You're crying and bitching about paying the civil servants a 10% raise. You're giving somebody $8,000, but of course, while the president gets what 400, you're giving $8,000, but he's getting 400,000 in his increase, and you're bragging about that. When your friends are making this, they're getting $666 billion in our infrastructure budget. I mean that is that's unbelievable. But going back to the working with the government, that would not be tolerated. And here's the other foolishness that the vice president, and he always comes up with these things off the top, just from out of the pulling stuff out of the air. He wanted to, when he was being accused of not being able to manage about these projects and the procurement process, said, "Well, I'm sure that Donald Trump would never appoint people to, the people who are selecting these contractors." Well, that is sheer nonsense, because the people who run projects are far removed from the president. The president has absolutely nothing to do with a transparent, well-structured process for procuring projects and managing it. So he was just full of nonsense again with his pack of lies. The president does not appoint managers of projects. Even the secretaries don't get involved with management of projects. It's people like myself, the senior executives, the career professionals, who are in charge of all of these projects. By the way, and these projects are even more than Guyana's entire annual national budget. We're talking about billions and tens of billions of dollars in these contracts. So you highly trained, and with the training that you go through with your experience, you gotta qualify in different levels. So
now we see all of that.
It's a totally different case that he's trying to pick up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vince Adams, with us this evening. And if you're now joining us, we thank you so much for sharing the link as well. Morris Sukraj is saying contentious degrees. Of course, contentious degrees. These guys cannot govern a thing in Guyana. I was in a discussion with somebody, and I suggested that if Jack Day was living in the U.S., he would not have even been working at Burger King. Not even at Burger King, not even at McDonald's. He probably would land a cashier job at the Salvation Army. And this is not to disrespect anybody, but Jack Day is just not qualified to govern, to run a country. All he is qualified for is corruption and corruption, lies and lies, and that is what they do. Dr. Vince Adams, I want to take our listeners, to an early morning embarrassment again. Here is Irfan Ali being given a script to read from and has not done a good job at it. So we'll take about a minute or two and listen to what he has to say early in the morning, scaring people, not properly dressed. And it's the usual, it's the norm that now we are accustomed to. It's the norm. And so let's go over and listen to what he has to say early this morning.
Some characters in our society who exercise what I would term egotistical arrogance. Egotistical arrogance is a simple term to describe some persons who are so egotistic, they believe they know everything.
All right, not to cut that, Dr. Adams, I can just imagine what is going through your mind there. We just spoke about, right? What a coincidence, huh? Egotistical arrogance. And he's so proud of himself.
And they believe they know everything.
Egotistical arrogance. All right, let's get back to this. This Lapi. So let's get back to him.
There are those in our society, they believe that they are in a sphere by themselves. But this arrogance avoids them from the factual basis or foundational basis of facts. It buries them in their ego. Their ego to dominate and their ego to want to dispose the truth in many ways, shape, and form. I would say these persons and these characters that exist in our society are willfully, they demonstrate what I call willful ignorance. And willful ignorance is understanding the truth, knowing the truth, but avoiding the truth, avoiding the facts, avoiding the reality. So,
all right, we just stick a pin there for a moment, avoiding the truth and willful arrogance and all manner of things. And something came to mind, Dr. Adams.
There and fabricate that. Unless you say who the person is, I can't comment on anonymous people.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Sujurong?
So he is correct. Willful arrogance, avoiding the facts, corruption. Before we get into the meat of all of this, though, what's your take? Because you should have been a cricketer representing West Indies, probably at the highest level. But what is your take on the opening batting there by this? I wouldn't even call him arrogant. You've got to be up in certain category to be considered as arrogant, but he's not. Your take?
Well, you know, I guess he's learned. Those were his 2 words for the day. Egotistical arrogance. You notice, when he catches on to these words, how many times he repeats them.
Oh yeah, probably.
And then the other part of that, even the qualifying part of it as well, they believe that they know everything. Doesn't this man understand that he's describing a certain person? Yeah. Does this man understand who is more egotistical and arrogant and believe that they know everything when they do not know? He's describing Barra Jaglio
and himself.
So I don't understand. He's just bringing to the surface and bringing attention to his vice president. But this is the kind of thing that doesn't mean anything. But even deeper than that, when I get to the timing, when you look at that press, well, it's not a press conference. When you look at whatever you want to call it, I cannot figure out what was the intention. Why do it today? But the only thing that could come to mind, we've got a very serious matter. We had a very serious matter today on the land rights and them taking away people's land and that type of stuff. That he knows that was going to be debated in Parliament, and there was a big protest out in front of the Parliament. So he's taking away the news. There's no question in my mind that was the intent of this, because I cannot see any substance in what he said today, and any kind of reasonable explanation as to why he would suddenly come up with the NRF. There's nothing being discussed right now by the NRF. It's all about the land acquisition issue. But suddenly out of the blues, he comes up and talk about the NRF, and then goes so it's just unbelievable.
It's confusing, just as his words, because he's just happy. Doesn't make sense in describing somebody as egotistical arrogance. 2 different words, 2 different meanings, but he has decided to combine it. It's just like sit dunk.
Here, but Mark, you gotta play the part though that made me laugh. There's a word that he brought up there, and he said, "Yeah, it's something to the effect. Yeah, it's a real word." As if
I hope it's not develop.
No.
Anyway, let's get back to this.
To be honest, that I had never heard before, and he had never heard before. So when the word, he feels proud that somebody gave him this word to impress folk, and then he said, "Yes, it's a real word. It's a real word," something to that effect. I mean, it's just.
I know it's Comedy Central. Let's try to develop his point. It might take all night to develop it, but let's get back to him, please.
Arrogance that demonstrate willful ignorance. These characters. They say 33 is more than 34. They deny that they tried to rig the elections. They say they had the SOPs but could never produce the SOPs. We had to go to every level of the judicial system through which our constitution, our democracy function. 5 months of reckless behavior from these characters that today come before you.
You know, I wouldn't allow him to get past this here, Dr. Adams. 5 months of recklessness on the part of the PPP who rigged the elections. 5 months of recklessness on the part of the PPP who joined up with outside forces to rig the elections and to remove a democratically elected government, all because of greed and wealth and oil money and all manner of things. And then he mentioned SOPs. This is the same vagabonds who are in office who have rushed to the court to block all of the elections petitions, every single one. During the course of the elections petitions, if they hadn't blocked it, then all of the SOPs would have been open. And once the SOPs open, then the entire world would have seen firsthand that the PPP rigged the 2020 elections in Guyana. So all of this early morning talk is just gaff. I prefer to spend early morning at Bamba Mali or somewhere in Poca Street or somewhere on the quarantine than to listen to this Paku, this egotistical arrogance of this man.
Brand, presenting themselves as the knowers and embracers of facts. I've seen these very people ponder and waver when their country required of them to be fair, open, democratic, and honest. These very voices were
Let's stop again, Doc. This is the same man with 19 fraud charges. This is the same man who claimed that he attended a university at IPLOT. This is the same man that cannot say where he got his undergraduate degree from. This is the same man who can't say how he did his PhD, his thesis for his PhD. But yet this is the guy who sits there and wants to lecture people, Doc. Before we get to the meat of all of this, what's going through your mind as you listen to this hypocrite?
You know what goes through my mind? As a citizen of Guyana, I'm coming from a country that laid the foundation for me and know what Guyana was before, with the leaders that we had before. What goes through my mind is an embarrassment. You know, I would love to, Mark, and I'm sure that you feel the same. I would love to parade my president and leaders of my country in front of my friends in the United States. But could you imagine me doing this type of stuff to show these guys who is the leader of my country? So that's what goes through my mind all the time, is the embarrassment for this type of demonstration of immaturity and cluelessness. It's a sad state of affairs. It really is. And you know, you go from one side with him doing that, and then of course tomorrow you see another charade with the vice president, of course, for 2 hours. I don't know if you ever, but it's painful listening to that man on Thursday. But I have to, because you know that's where you get a meet.
It's painful, Dr. Adams. It's painful listening to all of these vagabonds. Yeah. It's painful to see where Guyana is and the hands that Guyana is in right now. These vagabonds. Let's continue to listen to him. Of course, I know it's painful. He's damaging the English language. He's damaging words. He has created a word factory right now. But let's
I want you to get to the real word where he said it is the real word.
We will get to that. But let's continue to have him develop. So far, he hasn't been able to develop his point.
The win. When the country called upon them to stand up against efforts to rig the elections, when they were supposed to speak about a no confidence motion in which a government stayed in office for 2 years after the successful passing of a no confidence motion against the Constitution. Where were these voices of dignity and honor? But today, the egotistical arrogance and willful ignorance must be exposed. I call it a convenience of conscience. These guys and these characters demonstrate a convenience of conscience that is mind-boggling. They call themselves the virtuous ones of accountability. They call themselves the upholder of democracy. But a convenience of conscience cannot be ignored. And we must expose these persons. We must expose these characters. I wish to take you on a journey this.
Before he developed his point, almost 5 minutes and he hasn't been able to develop his points. What an embarrassment. You're laughing. Talk to us, please.
No, it's just the catchphrase is, you can tell that when he learned something. There are two things that he learned here. Was it convenience of conscience? Is that one?
Yeah, convenience of conscience.
And egotistical arrogance. Yeah, if you notice how many times he repeats these, it's really funny. And is the thing is the effort that he puts into it, it's the emphasis,
Okay, let him develop. He still is unable to develop. He's still unable to prove anything that the opposition rigged the elections. Of course, people know that it's the PPP that rigged the election. So he's sitting there as a fraudulent president, a fake president, but yet the egotistical arrogance in him is right. Egotistical arrogance.
The convenience of conscience.
And the convenience of conscience. Riggers. PPP riggers. And he knows he's sitting there not because of the 19 fraud charges, maybe because of the electoral fraud may be added and make it 20 fraud charges against him. But let's continue.
Presenting to you some slides and the facts on the Natural Resource Fund and on the abuse of our Constitution. And I want to reflect a bit on the legal framework for the Natural Resource Fund and the 2018 no confidence motion. It is important because I see these very persons who speak from a body of knowledge, from the position of being well educated on this matter, through the willful erosion and through convenience of conscience. So I want to remind them, I want to remind the population of who these persons are, what they embody, what they support. I want to remind the population.
Almost a little over 5 minutes, he still cannot develop his point. And his numerous contradictions and all manner of things, and his butchering of the English language and chewing up of the dictionary. What's he really trying to say as it pertains to the funds?
Yeah, but you see, that's what I told you from the get-go. What he's saying has no cohesiveness, doesn't make any sense, and you can't figure out what it. Normally, when somebody gets up there to make a speech or anything, there's some kind of an objective, and at least it's organized, and you're getting to, and it's following a certain, going a certain way that you can follow. But this here is jumping from one thing to the next. It's just taking up time, except for his catchphrases that he loves, and I guess he's learned something new: convenience of conscience and egotistical arrogance. But Mark, it's like I said before, it's an embarrassment. It's really an embarrassment. I can't figure out where he's getting it. He jumped to the NRF and in between he talked about the elections and what happened during the elections, but one thing, they never bring up the 47 boxes. You never hear anything with the 47 boxes.
And the dead voters and all these things. And you mentioned the 47 boxes, 6-1 dead voters. He didn't bring it up. 4,864 absent voters. He didn't bring that up. 150 stuffed ballot boxes. He didn't bring that up. 47 ballot boxes without documents. He didn't bring that up. 1,278 missing oaths of identity. He didn't bring that up at all. How convenient.
Yeah.
But what's the purpose of all of this talk by Irfan this morning? He still isn't able to develop his point.
It's a distraction of what was taking place today. Is to distract from the real news. I believe that's what it is.
It's not a good distraction there too.
Huh?
Not a good distraction.
No, it's not, because if this is the kind of distraction you're gonna want, it's I don't know. But what else could you expect with incompetence? They obviously they don't know how to do anything that is good and efficient. So how do you expect that even when they're doing something that is bad to satisfy their needs, that they're going to do it
first of all, if it's a ball field or some sort of sports, you could understand to call it early morning press conference and just throw on a cap and dash on a shirt probably made out of rice bag, and to sit there to present himself like that early in the morning, it's I don't know, it's a reflection of real arrogance, real egotistical arrogance. These guys. Let's continue, please.
Morning. Of who are the characters in every movie?
Characters
in every
is
script,
another word.
Characters. Some fictional, some real. But I would like to examine the real characters that have somehow find it.
The real characters. Real characters.
Here.
We gotta find the real characters. Maybe we should find the real characters.
We're gonna do a body man walk right now. You ready? Boxer, let me go now. Hear me sing now. Body walk, body walk, body walk, everything, body walk, truck.
Speaking of real characters, we gotta find the real characters. Let's find another one for him since he wants to find the real characters.
So you said valid votes counts, votes cast.
Real characters, right? Yeah. Let's continue because he still hasn't developed his point.
Convenience that is not based in truth or facts or law or reality. It is based on a convenience of conscience aimed at one thing: discrediting this government. So let's do some reflections this morning. Now, what did the PPP civic government inherited in August 2020? Particularly in relation to the NRF. And I hope the operators are putting the screen up. What did the PPC government inherited in August 2020? We inherited an NRF, the Natural Resource Fund. We inherited an NRF Act that was illegitimate and unlawful. Yes. Why was the NRF Act illegitimate and unlawful? Here are the reasons. On the 21st of December 2018, we're close to that date. On the 21st of December 2018, a no confidence motion was passed.
Sorry, let's pause here for a moment because he has still not developed his point. But he wants to talk something, but he doesn't know how to do it. And so he's all over the place, still trying to develop his point. And thus far, his point is pointless. And were I to be a professor at the University of IFLOT, I will give him an F grade. F. He failed. He's an embarrassment for the classroom. But let's touch on the NRF Act that was, he claims, illegitimate and unlawful. But these are the very people. He was still collecting a salary as an MP. They were all collecting their salaries, but yet it is illegitimate, it was unlawful, but it wasn't illegitimate, big word, and unlawful when Donald Ramotar prorogued Parliament and still continued to award contracts, oil blocks, and so forth and so on. What about those things? What about when Parliament was prorogued and they did all of these things under Donald Ramotar's minority government? And all these things, weren't those things illegitimate too? But let's talk about the NRF. That is what he wants to talk about. We'll leave the no confidence motion, that corrupt character. We'll leave that for later. But let us talk about the National Resource Funds, please.
Yeah. Oh, you talking to me or?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Adams.
Yeah. Well, first of all, and I looked at that this morning. I think I've got some empathy for this guy and Jack Dio because, well, I think Jack Dio is in a different class by himself because I think he deliberately lies. But I don't think that this guy really understands what or have a clue as to what he's talking about. So he believes what he's saying. I really do believe so because he doesn't understand what he's talking about. The NRF. So let me talk about this NRF. It was the fund that was put in place under the previous the coalition government, by the way, and the whole intent was to make sure that you don't just blow all the money up front. There's money for the rainy day. We call it the rainy day fund. And on top of that, if things go, let's say oil prices drop, for whatever reason at some point in time, you've got money in the bank to prop up your budget and stuff like that, and for the future generations. So that fund was set up not by the PPP because I doubt whether you would have had a fund similar to its setup on the Granger. And this here came directly from Mr. Granger. Mr. Granger wanted the entire nation to be involved in the decision making of that fund. So an oversight committee, if you will, was set up with 22 people, 22, that covered every single little groups every single group was represented in that 22 member committee. When they got into office, they disbanded that and they set up a different structure. And all this nonsense about him saying, well, the minister had powers to decide how, just unlimited funding. That is false. There was a formula that was in that NRF, but by his own words and by Jack Dio's own words, they said it's too complicated. That's another use of words that they keep repeating. It's too complicated. Everything is too complicated for them. Well, they need to stop judging others by their standard. It might be complicated for them, but it was easy. Anyway, so there was a formula. So it is false for him to say that the government had that the minister had unlimited power. So put that aside for a minute. In their system, in their process that they set up, believe it or not, their minister, if you look at their own act, their approvals, even with their board and their committees, that, by the way, all of their boards and committees, they themselves appoint those members and the chair for those committees and the board. And in that act, those committees and board report directly to the minister, in effect, because there's approvals all over the place. When they make decisions, they got to go back to the minister. So it's hypocrisy. But like I said, I don't think that the president understands that. I really do believe he believes what somebody is putting before him, and he's reading it similar to what he's doing here tonight.
And that's just what he's doing. He's running away. They haven't been able to do anything that's good. They want to control the funds. They want to control the spending, and that's because they want to thief from the.
Well, let me add this. By the way, let me add this piece because this is very important. When they got into office and they decided to get rid of the 22 member committee that Mr. Granger put in place to make sure. And why would you go against something like that where you have, representatives from all walks of life in Guyana, okay? But when they got into office and they decided to get rid of that committee, the opposition, which is the current opposition, started saying, hey, I don't think that that's the best way to go. So there was a compromise. When they formed the board, there was a compromise, and they decided that they were going to put 2 members of the opposition on that board. And we all agreed to it. Well, when I say we, I mean the opposition party with the leader of the opposition agreed to it. And when the opposition put forward the two names, and it so happened that I was one of those names, they walked into the meeting to finalize the list. And when the opposition proposed the two names, they rejected the names. And the opposition walked out to the meeting. And so obviously maybe that's what they wanted. That was their tactic to start with. So all they went ahead and appointed all members of the board and all members of the committee. So to say
And he talked about illegitimate and all. That is illegitimate. That is undemocratic. And of course they do that so that they can control. They can control and they don't want anybody there can question them. They want yes men and women, puppets. And
That's
so
right.
that is what they are all about.
And then he's calling it, he's got the North to today several times mentioned, and that this here is an independent board. Is somebody need to teach him what independent means? You know, so that's what we're dealing with here. So that's what this what he's talking about here.
It's an uphill battle to teach him about anything, and he's talking about board. I don't know. Probably somebody could remind him of the Guyana Development Rights Board and the serious allegations of corruption of hundreds of
and the Gaisuko board. The Gaisuko, don't forget
the board. You know what he's doing there basically is putting people on boards. So let us still allow him to develop. It's almost 7 minutes into his early morning rampage, and he still hasn't gotten to the point to develop anything.
Yeah.
Yes, you would recall that. On the 21st of December 2018, a no confidence motion was passed by the National Assembly. On the 3rd of January 2019, after the no confidence motion was passed, the NRF Act was passed by the National Assembly after the no confidence motion, with no input from the then opposition, the People's Progressive Party Civic. On the 23rd of January 2019, in an illegitimate and unlawful way, this act that was passed in an illegitimate process after a no confidence motion was successfully passed in the National Assembly, the NRF Act was ascended to by then President Granger. So two problems here. One, a no confidence motion was passed. After that, this NRF, with no input from the opposition, was passed on the 3rd of January 2019. And the then president proceeded to ascend to the act on the 23rd of January 2019. What should have happened really when the no confidence motion was passed on the 21st of December 2018? Because some of these guys pride themselves as brilliant lawyers, great mathematicians. But let me examine, as a layman, what was supposed to happen when the no confidence motion was passed on the 21st of December 2018. Let's go to the Constitution. Article 106 of the Constitution is clear about the consequences of an NCM. Article 106 of the Constitution is clear about the consequences after the NCM. 106.6 says, the cabinet, including the president, shall resign. You hear that? The cabinet, including the president, shall resign if the government is defeated on a vote of confidence. On the 21st of December 2018, if these law-abiding...
You know, Dr. Vince Adams, I'm still not getting it. Honestly, it's painful to listen to this guy. I don't know if you're getting it, but I'm not getting it at all. What exactly is he trying to develop? What is he trying to say? The same thing over and over and over, and not developing his story. The lies and lies and lies. What's happening there, please?
It's just a rambling. I'm telling you, it's just a rambling on and on. I guess it's part of their campaign. Something we might be hearing something about elections coming up next, because this year, like it is the timing. They want to take the real stuff off of the news, but he's obviously not doing a good enough
But
job.
someone, I don't know if you recall this, Dr. Adams. Someone should remind him the Natural Resource Fund bill. Of course, this is what passed under the coalition, and this was legitimate. This was done in a very fair, in a very transparent manner. But he's talking about the no confidence corruption, the corruption of the no confidence motion. Let's remind him, though, Dr. Adams, about this. Donald Ramatar libel suit over oil blocks allocation. A company registered and granted license 1 week before elections. Parliament dissolved and every single thing. And Irfan Ali, Jack Dale, and Donald Ramatar, and all these guys are giving out oil blocks. They're calling their friends and their cronies and come say, take oil blocks, take lands, take deals, take every single thing. He himself also, he rushed in and he got a big land deal of the Linden-Soesdijk Highway that was done under questionable circumstances. But he's not going to talk about these things. He's not going to remind us about his followers about these things. But he's going to come, he's going to sit there and attempt to paku people. But this is the same guy, and Jack Day will talk at this so-called press conference tomorrow, and yet they're still to answer the illegality of giving away, not just oil blocks, giving away radio station licenses to friends and cronies after elections were called. Jack Day did that. All of his friends, his family, Robert Passad, his niece, all of these people got radio licenses and TV licenses. He's not going to talk about that. They're not going to mention a single word about those things, Dr. Vince Adams.
Wasn't there something to it? You remember the Jennifer Westford car,
the limousine company and alleged tax evasion.
Are we talking? We know about Prado. You remember Pradoville?
Oh yeah, Pradoville 1 and Pradoville 2.
That's right. So, it's so sickening that you gotta, you would expect when you're talking, you'd be dealing at a certain level of intellect that, you may have different views and different positions, but how do you follow this kind of a conversation to even in an electoral manner have a cogent debate? It just loses you, because until now I don't know what's the purpose of what he's talking about here. It's not taking you any place, but it's interesting now that after 4 years you're hearing this stuff about, well, we've heard it before, but suddenly now they're really putting it together to impress somebody.
They're confused. They're not talking about, Dr. Adams, that 1 seat they stole from the AFC and gave to Sam.
That 1 seat.
Riggers. They're not talking that they attempted to rig the 2011 elections by giving Donald Ramatar an extra seat, which would have made his government a majority government, but they were caught attempting to steal 1 seat. They're not going to tell people that they wanted to stop the count in 2015 after whatever was being shown at GCOM was different from their hidden spreadsheet that they had. And a particular very senior diplomat, foreign diplomat, instructed the PPP, instructed Donald Ramatar not to stop the counting. But the purpose of stopping the counting was basically to rig the elections again. You were trying to develop a point. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. No, I think this here, it's a preparation. But I think the other thing here, Mark, I think we see it every single day. They are in a panic mode. Okay, there is something happening, and I believe the only thing that is happening, they have seen the census data. Okay, they have seen that census data, and they're keeping it under wraps. I mean, if that census data, do you really believe that if that census data was in their favor, they would have not been advertising it? Why are they hiding it? But then suddenly they're coming out with all of this stuff to kerfuffle people and to impress people. I think it's this year they're in the campaign mood. The mode they are in a panic, and I think that's what this is all about on a daily basis. I think it is.
And that's exactly what it is, Dr. Vince Adams. It's just a panic mode they're in. Hence, they're rushing to do all sorts of things to take away people's lands. You mentioned earlier the land acquisition bill. Let's just have people know that that bill has been voted on. From what we have heard, it has been voted on. And they're claiming that they got the majority. They're rushing these things through the parliament so that they can steal people's lands. I noticed Anu said that people are going to be compensated and it's going to be done swiftly. Look, the PPP has a history that whenever they're in office, they steal people's lands. They steal people's properties. That is what they are about. And that is what this land acquisition bill is all about, to steal people's lands. And so I agree with you, Dr. Adams, that something isn't right with what the PPP is doing. Something isn't right. And I think you are aware of what that something is. Members who are watching this program are aware of what's happening. And you hinted at the fact that the census, they are afraid to reveal the census. That is because they know that they are not a majority. The majority of their supporters, who happen to be Indian Guyanese brothers and sisters, they are no longer the majority. They're about 35% or somewhere thereabouts. And the PPP are afraid to go out and tell the people just that. That is why they're running around Poker Street, they're running around Amelia's Ward, Watuka, they're running around all over, giving handouts, cash handouts, in order to brainwash people and to make it appear as though people are on their side. They have lost the elections already. Let them face reality. They have lost the elections. It's just how the opposition are going to take it to the victory line.
But here's the two-prong attack here. And what we're seeing here now is this panic mode here. One is this the has to do with the census that they're not releasing. But here's the other piece. In terms of hiding stuff, it's the biometric. There are two things. Why wouldn't you want to do biometric that you've been shouting from the rooftop before? Biometric is to any reasonable person. What's wrong with biometrics? It would be fair to anybody. You would think that anybody would say, any reasonable person would say, hey, okay, you can't get any fairer than that. So let's go for the fairest thing. So they don't want to go there again because they've seen the census. And then, of course, we're seeing now that it's tying into this panic mode. Since they don't want to do the biometric because they know what the census is saying. And maybe they've got their ulterior motive as to how they're gonna fix that. And we are seeing it, that's what we're seeing here.
Panic mode indeed. 19 fraud charges. Panic mode. Good night to all of you. Well, I don't know, honestly, Dr. Vincent Adams, I don't feel comfortable going back to this. Just watching this is very painful. Watching it is very painful. Nothing makes sense. Absolutely nothing at all. And all of our listeners would agree, including PPP supporters, will say this guy has nothing sensible to say. It's painful. Even to look at his face, it is painful. But let us give him another 30 seconds to see if he can develop something.
The lovers of democracy, the virtuous ones of truth. If they had any decency, and none of them would have dared pen the letter, would have dared raise their voice or a finger when the constitution of this country was willfully trampled upon by these very characters, these egotistical persons,
arrogant,
who demonstrate willful ignorance and are what I call people who are characterized by the convenience of conscience. They are ultra crepidarian.
That's the word. That's
the word used to capture them in totality.
Let's get him again.
They are ultra crepidarian.
Now, let's spell that word. What? Talk to us, please.
Here, I, I mean, I want pass, we will laugh, and then put the other part when he said, let him say, well, it's a real word or something to that effect. Ultra crepidarian.
Let's say something. I guess probably he's talking about crepidam or whatever, but
yeah, this thing is
they are ultra crepidarian. That's a word used to capture them in totality. Ultra crepidarian. Denialism. They denied.
Oh, jeez,
in the public view of the world that they were defeated. You don't know confidence.
So the new word is ultra crepidarian. What exactly is he trying to mix up crepidam or what's happening here?
Yeah, I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue, but he said it's a word, so I wish he had spelled it, but it's a, you know, here's a lot of things.
He's probably trying to speak a little bit of Latin because crepidam.
Yeah, that's where it came from. I'm sure that's the foundation. But the thing is, the guy he hangs on to these words, such as character, if you notice, and then he acts it out as if he's a, you know, like when when you go to school, you got these plays and you call a character, and he's playing it out with his gesticulations and everything like a real character in a play. So I guess he's fit for purpose for what he's doing.
And so the ultra crepidarian, but in the way in which he pronounced it, it tells a different story. And really what he's trying to say is that the opposition basically, they criticize everything, they critique everything. Ultra crepidarian. Ultra
He doesn't know
crepidarian.
that, Mark. I swear that he doesn't realize what he doesn't even know what it means.
Well, somebody probably, obviously, there is such a word though, ultra crepidarian.
Well,
but
I'm sure it is when they're gonna put it on a piece of paper. To be honest, I've never heard.
Yeah, it's someone who criticizes all the time. Ultra crepidarian, ultra crepidarian, always criticizing. Yeah,
he said
crepidarian. Yeah, so that's probably what he meant. But it is what it is. It is that guy, and we can't expect anything better. Let's go back to his big word.
You getting him?
National Resource Fund Act. 1067 goes on to state, notwithstanding its defeat, the government shall hold an election within 3 months. The Constitution made it clear, was willfully trampled upon by these very characters, these egotistical persons who demonstrate willful ignorance and are what I call people who are characterized in the convenience of conscience. They are ultra crepidarian. That's a word used to capture them in totality.
So he paused, ultra crepidarian, and somebody probably obviously sneaked that new word into his vocab and decided to use it, and he paused and he looked around and he had to say it's a real word. A real word. An ultra-crepidarian is indeed a real word. Somebody who criticizes all the time, every single thing. And so it's just the way that he pronounced it threw people completely off. And so it's a new word. It's a big word for him. And we just have to close up shop here now. Dr. Vince Adams, take it as you close up, because he wasn't able to develop anything. No points, no nothing. He's talking about elections petition. He's talking about rigged election, all manner of things. He's all over the place. It's just like in the morning on the countryside. You just take a nice, because I love my rice in the morning. Wish I can get rice every morning, right, Diane Stewart? And so, therefore, get a bowl of rice. You throw cook up in it. You throw dal. You throw coconut choka. Every single thing you throw in this thing, and yasani. That's what he has done. He hasn't developed anything at all. What a waste. Closing remarks, Dr. Vincent Adams, and where do we go from here to develop beautiful Guyana?
At least, we got to stop being ultra crepidarians. Yeah, but no, in all seriousness, I think it's obvious that we have no leadership. This is not the leadership. And the one thing that I was taught, and I grew up in as a culture in working with as an executive in the United States government, it was all about leadership. It didn't matter whether you had PhDs in science and those things. When you get to that point, it's about leadership. They don't even call you managers; they call you leaders. And this here is far removed from anything that I've ever seen in any effective administration. And that's the challenge we have. And like I said, it's not going to get any better, Mark. It will not get any better, because you know why? Because they do not know any better. So don't expect, and because they're getting away with it and they're being more empowered, so they believe that what they're doing is exactly, and it's helping their friends and families, their single fans who wants to, praising them and worshiping them, and they're living a lifestyle that they've never lived before. So they're successful by their standard. So the only thing that can happen here, Mark, is for to have new leaders and new leadership in the country, and you can only do that by removing this administration. It's as simple as that, because you're not going to change them, Mark. It's almost impossible to think, and I don't care whether it's an outside force such as the United States or any of the Western countries, the democratic countries. I don't care who they are. This will not change this administration, these people that are here, and they intend to be here forever. So the only alternative is to move them out of office. That's the only way. And so the opposition has got to start, really focusing on how they're going to do that. That's the only hope. The only hope for Guyana right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent Adams. The only hope for Guyana right now is to remove these vagabonds from office. And in describing ultra-crepidarian, ultra-crepidarian, he fits that bill. He fits that. Someone who's definitely outside, beyond his pay grade, just beyond. And so he has spent at least half an hour, just God in heaven knows, doing what, saying what. It's just not there. Dr. Vincent Adams, what a waste of time listening to this character. He hasn't been able to develop a point, and so he receives tonight an F grade. Outside of an F grade, he also receives the trophy here on 107.1 FM.
But Mark, it's always nice to have some levity in your life, though. So I guess that's the value that we had tonight.
Yeah, it's no big thing, and no big thing. It's basically a gaff. Have you collected your 100,000 yet?
Nah, no.
That's another fraud, right?
Oh yeah, you think they probably, well, I guess they probably got my pictures there, so I don't think that I'll have to take a picture to get anything. But nah, They would.
Yeah, you got to take the picture for everything, and that's another
too much
corruption.
bureaucracy. Yep. And
Yeah.
then my picture. Well, I don't think they can get away with anybody looking like me if they take my picture and use it someplace else. That would be a challenge for them, Mark.
Yeah, they got a lot of people out in Linden, Poker Street area have that same look. Same look. Same look. All right, guys. We all thank you so much. We were able to develop our points that this guy wasn't able to develop anything at all. And that is why we were able to break it down to let you know that Guyana is not in the proper hands right now. And you guys have to do whatever is necessary to ensure that these vagabonds no longer return to office. These vagabonds have got to be removed by every legal means necessary. And that can only be done if you go out and you ensure that you're registered to vote. You guys have got to do it. Dr. Vincent Adams, yesterday was your good friend and my friend as well, David Hines. Birth anniversary. Let's take the time out to wish Dr. Hines a happy 27th, and I hope that as he gets older, he wouldn't be as egotistical and arrogant. Egotistically arrogant. Ultra. Dr. David Hines, we appreciate you. Happy birthday.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that. I gotta say, we gotta send him happy birthday wishes.
The guy is joining the Senior Citizen Club. He's joining us. He's no longer a little boy. He's a big man like us now.
Yeah, I know.
Birthday greetings to David Hines.
We can do it more like ourselves.
And all others who are celebrating their birth anniversary as well. Whatever it is that you're celebrating, go and just develop. Prepare to develop yourselves in 2025. Develop. Develop will be at his so-called press conference tomorrow, developing God in heaven knows what. Basil Bradshaw says, someone who pretends to know everything. It was given by Auntie Bev, an Afro-American on Facebook. Oh, Afro-American, yeah, but it's Latin. It's a Latin term, above one's shoe size, so to speak. So in other words, the term back then in the 1800s, it really means that you're giving this little boy, like in the case with Irfan Ali, big shoes to walk in. That's the meaning of the word. Yeah. All right, Basil Bradshaw, thank you so much. And to all of you guys, Eva and the whole crew, Wanda, Karen, Mary, Chevon, we can go on and on. Dr. Vincent Adams, some of our listeners, if you don't call the name, their bumps raised, they get vexed and all kind of things. So we love you guys. God bless you. Neville, Sital, and all of you. God bless. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Same place, same time. But don't forget, we have a morning program, a religious program with Pastor Greenidge and his wife, Marcy Greenidge, from 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's a good program. You guys should watch it. Good preaching, good talk. All right. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah, take care. Good night. Good night, Mark and listeners. Take care.
Dr. Vincent Adams and all of you. So long.
I can't take it no more. I can't take it no more. Can't take it no more. Imagine 18 hours of blackout and you're telling people progress. Cost of living gone up 100%. Get your give public servant less. Mr. President, listen to the people. Search your soul and you will confess. I want you try surviving on the public base. Then you're gonna know but stress. Cause I done fed up. You done fed up. He done fed up. She done fed up. We done fed up. The people fed up.
How we gonna do a body man walk right now? You ready? Box on, let me go now. Hear me sing now. Body walk. Body walk. Body walk. Everything. Body walk. Truck. Body walk. Body walk. Body walk. Everything. Body. Listen. Body jump. Body jump. Body jump. Everything. Body jump. Body jump. Body jump. Body jump. Everything. Hear me sing. So big body down wearing tight pants. Big body jump.
He said valid votes count,
Oh, Jesus Christ. If cost of living double, I don't know what happened. A pound of sugar is $300 already. Flour, everything gone up. Everything just raising. You gotta get about $40,000 for buy good ration. You gotta get 3 man now. A weekend man, a monthly man, and a...
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my X next to the cup. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by 1 vote, they're losing it by data.
There seems to be no oversight from any engineer. The Public Works Ministry seems to have a Wild West situation. Contractors just come and do whatever they do. You notice they planted some lampposts, concrete lampposts. There's no alignment. They just dig holes in the ground, mud, and lay concrete poles. These poles are leaning in all directions. We even had a situation where one of the poles leaned and the wires connected, and there was a big blackout and fire in the area.
I think Mr. Ben would have talked about GPL coming and putting down these concrete posts. They did it in such a, I want to say, ineffective manner or unprofessional manner. For some of these posts, the mud that they removed to put the posts in the ground have been left in the drain, and that has contributed to a drainage problem. Mr. Ben and some of the other residents have highlighted how, because of the lack of drainage, the instance of a couple minutes of rainfall leads to, several, I think about a feet or two of flooding.
Imagine 18 hours of blackout, and you're telling people progress. Cost of living gone up 100%, yet you give public servant less. Mr. President, listen to the people, search your soul and you will confess. And while you try surviving on the public base, then you're gonna know but stress. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up.
The man refused to shake my hand twice. What do you want me to do? Bow before him? He's God?
That's the only thing you can do in terms of...
The opposition leader is not God. The first thing you must know, the first thing you must do...
Neither of you is.
No, I'm not. That is why I reached out humbly trying to shake his hands, and he refused. I tried...
Hawk 2!